Hello and welcome to session 1 of Brindlewood Bay. Brindlewood Bay is a Powered by the Apocalypse a game of mysteries, which is available from the Gauntlet, written by Jason Cordova, and you can find that on drive-thru. It is Murder, She Wrote with a little bit of eldritch horror at the end, but it starts at Murder, She Wrote. It starts at Cabot Cove and ends up in Innsmouth, is the intent here. So we've got a number of players with us today. We're going to be working through our session 1 procedure here, which means that if you're watching this and you're like, oh, I don't want to watch the character creation stuff, you can probably skip to the midpoint, but we'll talk about that. My name is Lowell, pronouns he, him, and I'm the community manager for the Gauntlet gaming community, which is an online gaming club that has a lot of pieces and parts associated with it. We have a Patreon that supports that. We have 2 weeks from now on the weekend, we have a free online gaming weekend. Registration is opening for that tomorrow as I'm recording this at almost exactly this time tomorrow. And you can find out about that at gauntlet-rpg.com. So without too much further ado, I want to walk through the process, talk about the setup and things, and do CATS, which is concept, aim, tone, and subject matter. And I'm going to be paraphrasing for the material. Jason has written out a very nice CATS document for this, so I want to go through this. So this is an RPG about a group of elderly women. They are members of this local Murder Mavens mystery book club. And as you can imagine, they find themselves frequently investigating and sometimes solving real-life mysteries in their small Massachusetts town. Over time, they're going to become increasingly aware that there are strange things afoot, a cult that lies in the background. In this case, a society dedicated to the dark, monstrous aspect of the goddess Persephone that will eventually rise up to vex them. The game is directly inspired by Murder, She Wrote, but also takes inspiration from Lovecraft, cozy crime dramas, and American TV shows from the 70s, 80s, and 90s. Today, our aim is we're going to be creating characters. After we create those characters, we're going to have everybody introduce them, and we're going to populate a section of the character sheet called A Cozy Little Place, where that's sort of a group activity for everyone. After that, we're going to take a break, and when we come back, we have a beginning of session set of procedures and some cozy vignettes that kind of set up the stage, and then we get the mystery, and we'll get investigating on the mystery that we're going to set up today. I'll do a tonight on, and we'll talk about that when we come to it. There'll probably be a short debrief just to check in with everybody at the very end. And this is a game where at the start of session, we present new mysteries. It is possible to have a couple of mysteries going at the same time, just to be aware that that's a little bit different from, say, your standard TV structure. Tone. So the tone of the game bounces between cozy and creepy. Most of the time, it's going to be fairly lighthearted, but occasionally can be a little more dark and menacing. Some kitschy, campy humor is permissible here, and it's very much in keeping with the game's inspirations. But above all, your characters should take everything they do seriously, even if we're having a bit of laugh from time to time. Our subject matter may occasionally get dark and challenging, especially if we get to the cult stuff. In order to ensure no one's fun is ruined by triggering subject matter, we have a set of safety tools. Our first safety tool that we have is presented in the Character Keeper. It is our Lines and Veils tab. You should feel free to, throughout the character creation process, go over there and mark anything that you feel strongly about. Line, we avoid completely. Veil being something, if it appears, we're going to elide away from that. And if there's anything that's not on the list that you feel strongly about, feel free to add that to the end of that. In addition to that, we're also using the X card. The X card supplements and finds things that maybe we didn't discover during that Lines and Veils process. And We can do that with a gesture, and we can do that in the chat. You can say X card verbally as you want. When you do that, don't need to justify yourself. I may ask you to kind of get a sense of where we're going to cut back to for that material. And this is for anything that you find problematic, objectionable, way off tone, or even, as I've had happen, hitsophobia. Then those are all things that can be justified, for use of an X card. And last thing of our safety tools is this is an open door. So if at any point you decide you need to get up and walk away, I don't think necessarily this is a game that has that kind of thing in it, but you're always welcome to do that. Maybe leave us a note in the chat that you're going to be back or not back, but you don't even have to do that. You can just step away if you need to. So be aware that that is out there for us. So I've seen that our players are grabbing their things. We're using a online character keeper, a Google Sheet to handle things. We're going to be doing the process going up to a cozy little place, which means your name and surname, a style, choosing a cozy activity, and there is a drop-down list, but you can come up with others that you would see fit. The only thing we ask is that no two mavens have the same cozy activity. And of course, these include collecting, bookbinding, all of these kinds of interesting home activities. You'll see that the stats are pre-marked at vitality 0, composure and reason 1, and sensitivity at -1. On top of those, you get to add 1 to one of the stats. This is a game where for a lot of the moves, we're going to be choosing which stat applies depending on what you're doing, how you're approaching it, all of that kind of thing. You'll
Question,
also, yes.
Do I have to use the pre-marked stats as is, or could I just go from 0 and add 1 to one stat?
He has it set that composure starts at 1, reason starts at 1, sensitivity at -1, and then you add 1 to those stats. The next thing is all of you will choose a Maven move. These are named after TV detectives. We ask that no two Mavens have the same Maven move. And if there are two moves that are mutually exclusive, Dale Cooper and Fox Mulder moves cannot both be taken in the group. So if someone takes one, the other one is excluded. But let me give you a couple of minutes to figure those things out. Once we're done with that, then we'll look at introductions and we'll go to the cozy little place section of that. If anyone has questions, feel free to hit me up. The basic moves have their own tabs, so you can kind of see what the stats and things are, what moves there are. And if you want to look at just a big list of the Maven moves, so you don't have to keep pulling through the drop down, there is a tab with all of those listed.
The styles, is that just whatever I think that evokes? Like Martha's Vineyard would be, I guess, like the waspy sort of cardigans around your neck and drinking wine.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. Yeah. This is very impressionistic.
Yes. What? Okay, I'm just going to Google what Dorothy Zbornak.
I was about to do exactly the same thing.
Actually, can you post what you find in the chat? Because
Which one are you looking for?
Dorothy Zbornak.
Zbornak.
It's a Beatrice Arthur thing, apparently, a character from the Golden Girls.
Yeah.
By Beatrice
Oh.
Arthur. Okay.
Oh, it's Dorothy from the Golden Girls, who is the I think is the eldest, the mother, one of the characters who's very taciturn. Is that what I may be right about that? I'm not a big Golden Girls buff, so.
No, I think my closest touchstone is going to be Murder, She Wrote, and Miss Marple.
And no Midsummer Murders here.
I
That's
have
not good. That's not going to help you.
I've liked the Golden Girls actually, but
Good show.
I did not watch Murder, She Wrote. So
I think it's going to be on Peacock in America when that launches.
it's not very helpful.
I know. Well, if you have a friend who can pirate for you.
Murder, She Wrote, right at this point, is on Amazon Prime.
Yeah, I think
in
it
the
is.
US.
So hopefully in Germany as well.
Yeah. Oh, we'll see.
I
Maybe
don't know.
I'll give it a watch, but I've tried to rewatch some of the older 80s shows and they're slow shows.
Yeah, there are a couple episodes of Murder, She Wrote I've started to watch, and I'm like, nope, I'm moving on to the next one.
There's one, and there's a woman who did a video on YouTube. It's like that time Murder She Wrote went completely off the rails. And that episode is worth watching, then watching her commentary.
Yeah.
Because it's really a crazy pants episode. You can't believe it made it to broadcast.
That's Pushing Up Roses, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so.
What would gun fishing just be fishing?
I think gun fishing?
Going
fishing. Yeah, it would be fishing.
Okay, cool. I can't square that in my head with like, one of you just has like a yellow white waders and a yellow jacket on the inside. I'm going to stop overthinking my style.
In New England, it would most likely be like coastal fishing, so out on a boat.
Yeah.
Or in a lake on a boat, instead of kind of like standing in a river doing fly fishing.
Yeah, I guess it's more I can't square the the elderly lady and the fishing part when my idea of a fisherman in New England is like Jaws, basically.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Blouse ban, that seems nice and neutral. And has anyone chosen code? We got bookbinding, birding, antiques and furniture. Perfect.
I just said out loud, I'm going to unmute myself, and while I was muted. So we're going to go through and do character introductions. We're going to go ahead and have you introduce yourself, and then your character, telling your name, style, cozy activity, and your maven move. Once we've gone through that, then we're going to go back through with everyone, and we're going to ask some key questions about aspects of your life, about your deceased partner, children, or pets, and what your career was before you moved to Brindlewood. So those are things we're going to ask on a second go around. So we're going to move across the character keeper. Sabine, why don't you tell us about your character?
Yeah, I will be playing Violet. Violet is, I think she's retired now, but she worked as a librarian for as long as she could work. She was married to a man she did not particularly loved, but you had to marry right was the thing. And he wasn't a bad guy or anything. He left her for a younger woman when she was in her 40s, and now he's left his newer wife for a younger woman again. Well, yeah, that's Arnie. That's just how it is. She has a kid, a boy, who lives somewhere in California.
I am going to stop you here, Sabine, because
okay.
we're going to do that on the second go around. Those questions.
Sorry.
I'm
Yes,
sorry. I
okay.
should have been clearer about that. That's
no,
my fault.
Maybe I wasn't listening too closely. I'm sorry. Okay, Violet is a mousy kind of person. She's never been really somebody who was standing up for what she likes or anything. She's shy. She likes to accommodate people's desires. She still works at the library, but she's retired, so she doesn't get paid for it or anything, but she likes books. That's why her cozy activity is book binding. She takes old books, or not ancient books, but old books, and kind of makes them better. That kind of calms her down, I guess.
And what did you take for your Maven move?
Oh, that's the Frank Colombo move. She's not really standing up for her, but she has a question. She might come back and ask it, because yeah, that's just not clear.
Okay, so that gives us a good basic sense. We'll come back and I'll ask you some further questions on those details about your partner and life before. Let's move across the character sheet. Scott, why don't you tell us about your character?
Sure. Yep. I'll be playing Ruby, and Ruby isn't retired so much as never worked. She's in her mid-50s. Kids have flown the coop, and husband has passed away, so she's left with some Social Security money and spends most of her day wandering about and looking for birds in the area. She also likes butterflies. Occasionally goes down to the coast to, say, New Jersey for the Monarch landing. Yeah.
And your Maven move for her?
I took the Scarecrow move, which is get the clue at the beginning of a session handed to you somehow by the keeper.
Excellent.
From the classic Scarecrow and Mrs. King.
And one of the things is that there's an accumulation of clues towards one of the moves, so you can decide whether you want to use that for this. Can assign it into an active mystery whenever you want. Then Will, tell us about your character.
So my character is Rosemary, who I think used to be an editor, I think for a publishing house, and she moved here with her husband, who has passed away, who was a writer.
Tell us about your style and activity.
Well, she is doesn't really have a particular blouse band. I imagine as kind of being like sort of typical kind of like what's it called, like a casual formal kind of like older lady wear kind of thing. Okay. Like nicely done up, but not like you're dressed up for anything in particular, and that's sort of the general,
Yep.
And her cozy activity is collecting, and I think she collects first editions of books.
Ooh, nice connection. And what is your Maven move?
So I really want to lean into the weird, like go headlong at the weird stuff in this game. So I am tempted to go for Dale Cooper or Fox Mulder. And I think my only problem is that I can easily understand Dale Cooper's one. The Fox Mulder one, it's harder for me to wrap my head around with that thing.
So what it is there is a sheet for the Dark Conspiracy and revelations that are sort of chosen from that. Those come out as a certain number of void clues, which is a thing that can happen, are accumulated. And essentially you makes that happen faster. that there are a lower threshold for when the particular layer of these strange clues are unlocked.
Okay. And I suppose the real difference would be that Fox Mulder would imply that there is somebody who I know who is off camera revealing hidden things to me as we go through the mystery, versus Dale Cooper will be psychic visions giving me
I think so.
You know what? I'm going to go with the Dale Cooper one.
Okay.
I'm just not confident enough of my understanding of the mechanics to go for Fox Mulder.
Sure. And then last but not least, Dan, tell us about your character.
This is Barbara. She goes by she goes by Bobby. She is sort of very practical. She was a feminist before feminism was a thing. She moved to New England when she and her husband retired. She doesn't like living in New England, but her kids live in Boston, so she moved up here. After she and her husband retired, she opened a kind of antiques trading, collecting thing. And even after her husband died several years ago, she has persisted in that. She moved up from New York, and she was never much of a biker, but since she now lives on the Massachusetts coast or the New England coast, where everyone uses a bike, she has a bike, and that's her move. She's the Michael Knight. She has a trusty mode of transportation. So it's a little 3-speed that she uses to get around town, and it's just known as Bab's bike.
Very nice. Excellent. We'll come back to ask you those questions. So I'm going to swing back to Violet. Let's start with your deceased partner. Violet, tell us.
Right, he's deceased. Yeah, well, he died in a boating accident, basically. His
This
young
is
wife
after
survived.
the couple of wife swaps.
Yeah. His youngest wife survives, and I think she's still maybe in town, but I don't hold it against her. He was charismatic, I guess.
Are there any questions about the boating accident? Is it pretty clear it was an accident?
I mean, Violet thinks it's pretty clear it was an accident. He was the kind of guy who would go out in the storm because, the waves don't bother me. I've been sailing for 200 years. Well, probably not that, but, and he overestimated himself and then was drowned, but maybe there's more to it. I don't
Excellent.
know. Violet has never thought about it that way because it seemed pretty much that Barney was just overestimating himself. He was usually doing that anyway.
His name is Barney. He's the husband's
Yes.
name. Okay.
Yeah.
Children?
Yeah, we have a son who's called Benjamin, and he lives on the East Coast with his husband and their adopted daughter.
Like close enough that they visit regularly, or far enough that the time between visits is pretty?
Yeah, they don't. The time between. I imagine that we're on the. Oh, I meant that he was on the West Coast. We're on the East Coast, so it's far away. But we do this FaceTime thing that he has explained to me, and that's kind of nice. So we see each other.
Nice. And you said that you were a librarian.
God, that hat.
It's a great hat Scott has there.
And not.
You were a librarian before you went to Brindlewood Bay, like a city librarian, like a children's librarian, like a college or university librarian.
I imagine that I've always lived in small towns, actually. So like a small town, all-purpose librarian for mostly everything. Like probably some other East Coast town where they had older books and stuff like that, and just lost myself between the books, I guess.
So probably started when they still had the library cards in the little things and the Dewey Decimal System.
Oh, okay. Yes, absolutely.
Excellent. We're going to come back to you when we do some cozy things in a sec, but I'm going to move on here. Let's come to Scott and his adorable hat. Scott, tell us about your deceased partner.
Actually, I was gonna do what Sabine did, but so I'm gonna still do it, but I'm gonna change it a
Sure.
bunch. He was actually a lobsterman, and actually came from a long line of lobstermen, and he died while out one time checking their traps, or rather he wasn't found again. His boat was found and it was empty. The assumption being, weather got rough, the currents, knocked the boat over. It happens.
And your children? Do you have any children?
Oh yeah, I've got 2 children, Jennifer and Jonathan. And because what else would somebody older name their children? And well, let's see, Jonathan feels like he has to take care of me now that I'm on my own. He lives, so we're in Cabot's Cove, so he'll just live in Boston. It's close enough to get here. And he's the doting, pretty much annoying. I'm actually going to remove this. It's just not going to stay on with the headset. And I'll answer Will's question in a second. And Jennifer lives, let's put her in Chicago. She lives in the big city. She didn't like the small town nature of the New England coast here.
So she went to a place with even worse weather.
Yep. And this is a hat from the Red Hat Society, which is like a women's group mostly in the South in the U.S., which is basically like a social group for retired women, in the absence of churches being a main social force. My mom, this is actually my mom's.
Oh.
She was a member when she lived in South Carolina before she moved back up here and sadly passed away. But that's what that is. It's perfect for this game. It's perfect for a game with the grannies. Obachan Panic.
Oh, okay. What about your career before you retired here? What kind of career did you have?
My career was raising 2 children, which is a very demanding but rewarding job. With a lobsterman husband, he would be out for days at a time. So I often had time to myself with just the children. And really, I mostly raised the children single-handedly. I did not like the lobsterman lifestyle for Jonathan and encouraged him to do something different, which he did.
Excellent. That gives a good sense. Let's go to Will. Will, tell us first about your deceased partner for Rosemary.
Arthur was a prolific writer, quite popular in his own regard. He wrote crime novels and mysteries. Never was really my thing while he was alive, but since he died, I've come to enjoy them. And Arthur died, not in a boating accident, not in a car accident. Is it
I
too
like
much
that we
if I
have
say
three deaths by boat.
Yeah,
seems especially appropriate at this point.
Yeah, I was going to say, is it too much? I know we don't have a line or veil on it, but if Arthur was supposedly commit suicide, but I never believed that while he was working on a new book based around the area.
That seems like a classic trope. So yeah.
Cool. It's just, suicide is one of those things that often don't really go close to. So.
And children?
I think one child. Sarah, who I think lives in London, working in the in the press, in the public say, the book world, basically. There.
Okay. Publishing world. Okay.
Yeah.
like an editor or an acquisitions person, or just kind of in the machinery of publishing there?
I think given that we are elderly, then I think that she is, I think that she might be like an agent for multiple authors, you know?
Yeah. And your career before you retired?
I was an editor at a prestigious publishing house, you know, work that was fairly flexible, you know, like I think I was that kind of character that you see who is like executive level and like has meetings and flies places, but can often get sent things to work from whatever location. And I think Arthur and Rosemary did, you know, move around quite a lot, like from place to place. And Brindlewood Bay is where we ended up. It was the research for his new book. And obviously, I'm not leaving, not until I find out.
That makes sense. And Dan, what about for Bobby? What is tell us about your deceased partner?
Sure. So his name is Robert. So we went by Bob and Bobby because we thought it was cute. And we owned a mom and pop store in one of the boroughs of New York City. And when we decided to retire in our early 60s, we really wanted to go to Florida, but we ended up coming up to New England to be closer to our kids. Bob ended up dying a few years later. No big mystery. He had cancer. But I always thought it was the stress of owning a store that killed him. We have two children together, Rachel and Rebecca. They're both in Boston. Rachel, the elder, is an academic at one of the schools in the Boston area. And Rebecca has always been more ambitious. And she is an executive, I think, at a pharmaceutical company.
What was the name of the mom and pop store?
It was a hardware store, and it was called Nuts and Bolts.
Nuts and Bolts. I think that gives us a good sense there of the characters. What we're going to do next is we're going to go to each person, and we'll start again back with Violet. And Violet, each of us, the keeper and the other players, are going to suggest some object, a decoration, a tool, you know, a piece from the setting that is present in your house. So these are things that us thinking about it tell us something about your character. And then these go down in the section called a cozy little place. And they can be called on during the game when appropriate to help you out. There's a little checkbox by them there. I would like to suggest, I'll go first in this, that you have one of those big Oxford English dictionaries, like the big OEDs, where you pull a little magnifying glass out.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
nice.
You know, that so because it's such tiny print. Yeah. And so you have a big OED. Scott, what do you think would be found in Violet's house?
Do you do the bookbinding at home, or do you have like an office or a shop, Violet?
I think I have a workplace at home.
Yeah, so you clearly then would need this is where I'm going to show my complete lack of understanding of tools that men use. It's one of those things that you slide and a razor blade comes out of it.
Oh,
And
you like
they
like
use it to
the
cut
cutter.
cardboard or whatever. I
Utility
don't.
knife.
Yeah, cardboard
There
cutter.
you go.
Yeah.
I knew it had a normal name. I think I own one. I'm not sure.
I worked at an archive once, and these things are really sharp.
Oh yeah.
So,
Yep. They're real razor blades. So
mhm. Yeah.
That brings us to Will. Will, what is another thing that you think we would find in Violet's house?
I think you would find her husband's Arthur's old study, something in that maybe. Like I'm trying to think, like not be like just like Arthur's notes kind of stuff. Like I guess I'm not really. How do these come into play? Sorry.
So they come into play in this way is that you can call on one of these objects to boost your results during play, and essentially you check mark it off, and it will bump it up.
Okay.
So it's, and once it's marked, it's still there to be used in the fiction, but its mechanical import has been spent.
Yeah.
And we're naming things that are in the other players' characters' houses.
Yeah,
So,
yeah,
we're
so-
naming stuff for Violet, for Sabine's character.
Right.
Oh, I see. Sorry, how's my
That's okay.
mental problem there? For Violet, yeah. Librarian who has an OED, and a craft knife, and I think she has, I don't know, maybe like tea and kettle. Does that seem to, like you drink tea and read your books and like?
It's perfect.
Yeah.
I have a, it's an English tea kettle. So it's from England, and I don't microwave my tea no matter what Gail Simone says.
Perfect. And to be absolutely clear on a question that was asked by William, the mechanical effect is when you're able to use your cozy little place, you get to roll with advantage, meaning the extra die and take the two highest. Dan, what is the last thing that you think will be found in Violet's house?
I had this idea, Sabine, and I hope this is okay with you, but I think Violet generally gets along well with her son-in-law, but he did not make a good first impression. And so you're a tea drinker, but he sent you a bag of coffee beans from wherever they live now, locally roasted coffee beans. So that's kind of in the back of a cupboard somewhere. You couldn't bring yourself to throw it away because it was kind of a nice gesture, but he doesn't really get you.
Yeah, I like that. And I'm changing his name to Ricardo. And I'm saying that these are Peruvian coffee beans that he had from his home. So I cannot throw them away.
Very nice. That brings us to Ruby, and thinking about what you would have. I think, Ruby, that we will see that you have your husband's old tackle box for fishing. The tackle box that has all the lures and things in there. While he did, the fishing out on the boat, it also had, a fine collection of old things that probably are worth quite a bit, since some of those antique lures are quite pricey. Does that seem okay?
that sounds great.
Okay. Will, what is another thing that you think we're going to find in Ruby's house?
A pair of binoculars.
Perfect. The classic binoculars. Actually, watching the old Murder, She Wrote, whenever you see somebody with binoculars, they are massive. They're massive binoculars. Dan, what's another thing that we can find in Ruby's house?
I think Jennifer once sent you a birding guide, and maybe maybe that's how you got into birding. I don't know. She sent it to you when you first moved to, or when you first were out on your own, or something like that. And it is well thumbed, lots of bookmarks, and you love this thing. And you're always a little frustrated that Jonathan hasn't taken up your interest or noticed your interest in birding.
Does that work for you, Scott?
Yeah.
And Sabine, what's the last thing that we will find in Ruby's house?
Oh, all the good things have been taken now that I was thinking about. So, I think, yeah, I think you have a very sturdy pair of boots that are kind of, yeah, kind of crusted with mud from trampling around at the seashore and stuff like that. And yeah, you might clean them up, but they're like a road map from all the places you went to, and that's why you never get around to cleaning them up. And I mean, mud falls off, obviously, but it's like they're still witness to all your journeys. That works.
Now, would these be just like the boots, like a welly style, or would these be like waders?
Like hiking boots.
Okay, great.
That is so.
So we're in New England, so it'd be the classic bean boot.
Yeah.
It's so New England. Yes.
Then let's come. Let's figure out about Rosemary. What Rosemary would have in her house. I think one of the things that we'll find in Rosemary's house is one of those big things of furniture polish, with a Ziploc bag of the rags that you use to clean off the tables and, the furniture you're used to, that kind of thing for preservation. So there's one of those old school name brand bottles of furniture polish.
Cool.
Dan, what else do we see in Rosemary's house?
I think some books that she worked on won some awards, maybe even a Pulitzer at some point. So she's got a Pulitzer Prize sitting on her mantle.
Nice.
So a Pulitzer Prize or books? Which one would I be putting down for that?
I think it's the prize itself. I think it's
Pulitzer Prize. Yeah. Nice.
And then Sabine, what's another thing we'll find in Rosemary's house?
I think it's her husband Arthur's old writing machine, or maybe he had just before he died, he bought himself a personal computer to write on because it's just so much faster and everything. And now that thing is there and she can use it, and he never wrote a book on it, maybe a few chapters or notes from the new book before the thing happened, but yeah, he's there as a personal computer. I don't know how long ago he died, so that would be how.
Is it modern day setting?
Yes.
Yeah. Let's say it was like I don't know, 10 years ago maybe, like, yeah.
Okay,
so it is probably a pretty heavy laptop there.
Yeah, it was very modern. Maybe it's an iPad or computer. What are they called?
That would have been called a MacBook back then.
Yeah, MacBook. Thank you.
Oh,
yeah.
MacBook. Yeah, like that.
And if you didn't turn it on in God knows how long, it would probably still be absolutely fine.
And then Scott, what's another thing we're going to find in Rosemary's house?
Husband was a writer, right, Will? Let's go with it.
Or like criminals, crime books.
Yeah,
maybe,
so
I think heavier than the Golden Crown mysteries. you know?
Sure,
Like,
sure. More in the Ed McBain mold. Let's go with a classic typewriter and
It's a nice pairing to the laptop and the old style typewriter.
on the finely polished desk where the
Yes.
Pulitzer Prize rests alongside it as well. Yes.
We can get them all in one shot. That's why the set dressers like that, those picks there. Sabine, what is a thing that we're going to find in Bobby's house?
I think what we will find in Bobby's house is a can of, do you have this, I think it's WD-40, when you spray it on stuff, then
Oh,
it kind of, it starts moving again, even if it didn't before. So, yeah, that's
Absolutely.
something everybody needs anyway.
She hasn't really touched it. She hasn't really touched it. It was her husband's. So it's been sitting there for 10, 12 years.
It probably has a little bit, you know how when you get the little WD-40 runs down the side and after a number of years it gets gummy. Yep. So it's still a little sticky there.
Yep.
And Scott, what's another thing that we're going to find in Bobby's house?
let's see. I think you have one of those watchmakers eye things, because sometimes you need to check the grain of the wood to make sure antiques are exactly the right wood. And so you have one of the, I have no clue what it's called, but it's the thing they put over if they wear eyeglasses. Their eyeglasses, and yeah.
It's a jeweler's loupe is what it's called.
There we go.
I'm gonna make it more on the jewelry side because
yeah. Whatever your the type of antique that you're specializing in.
And then I think that we probably have you ran a hardware store, so let's say like a plumber's wrench, like a real classic old style plumber's wrench. So that gives us some tools and things to work through.
Well, I didn't get one from Will.
Did I? Oh, I'm sorry.
There was one from my move.
Oh, that's right. But I was looking, I was counting, and I did not think this through. Will, what is another one that Bobby has in her house?
So you're an antiques dealer, right? But you mostly deal in like furniture and stuff.
Antique jewelry is more her thing.
Antique jewelry. Well, I think that you've got a piece of antique jewelry that you just caught your eye, perhaps. Maybe some kind of like, Brindlewood Bay. How could it be? Like maybe like a mermaid or something. Like,
I like that.
Brooch.
Yeah, mermaid brooch. Yeah,
strange and unusual. A look of slightly unearthly stone. Yeah, I think that.
You saw exactly where I was going with that. Yeah. I was going to say a totem of Cthulhu.
So what we're going to do here is we're going to take a break, and then we're going to come back and do some start of session stuff and get rolling into our mysteries. So let's take that break. We'll go to about the hour, since we're about 6 minutes off or so. Okay.
thought appropriately I would make a cup of tea and get a slice of homemade banana bread to go with it.
Most excellent. Let me talk briefly before we kind of move into the next part of this about the basic moves and the play structure of the game. We have the day and the night move. This is a very much I need to do something move. This is the overcome move from other games. However, the day move is for anything done during the day, but when you're out doing stuff at night, it's a little riskier. So there's a little more chance of questions and complications. And you look at those, there's a little bit of change of the balance of results on those. Our investigation move is the meddling move. And this is searching for clues, doing research. It's even just talking to people. Like I'm just talking to someone and I think I want to get this information out of there. And one of the results on that is getting a clue. And you see it's a capital C clue because clues are actually things that come from a particular mystery that will be put out, and we'll add it to the list. And I want to kind of jump from that meddling move to the theorize move, which is in that third column on that sheet. At some point, the mavens, you will talk about what you think the solution to the mystery is. And there'll be kind of a freewheeling discussion. You'll look at the clues you already have, try to reach a consensus. And what you'll do is you'll roll plus the number of clues that you've gotten, subtracted from the difficulty of the mystery. Or the difficulty of the mystery subtracts from that. So we've got we've got a difficulty of 6 for this starting mystery. So that should give you kind of a sense of what goes on here and how the play cycle works. The cozy move is our sort of comfort and support move. It's showing the two of you engaged in a cozy activity. You trigger this off. It's a way to clear conditions. Conditions are effects that can create disadvantage later on that you'll get. You can also use it to generate a clue. You can ask questions. It's sort of an interaction move there. Once per session, you can use the Gold Crowned Mysteries move. This is where you refer to this mystery book series that the Mavens love, the Gold Crown Mystery Series by Robin Masterson, which features the globe-trotting super sleuth Amanda Delacourt. This is a situation where you describe how something is happening. It reminds you of the book. We'll ask you for some details. And if you do that and give us those details, you get 12 plus, because in this game, a 12 plus is an even bigger success. It's not just 10 plus. This one goes to 12. So just kind of keep that in mind. The last move that I want to mention is the Occult Move. The Occult Move is a dangerous move for you. It is when you're using the supernatural, it allows you to kind of create a supernatural effect. We write a move up for that, but there's always going to be some costs. One of the costs that will come from that is, you may notice there's something called the Crown of the Void. You'll see that on your sheet here. We've got both the Crown of the Queen and the Crown of the Void. These are a set of steps that occur on the character. And you can see that they have, if you go onto them, there should be a little bit of note about what they do. They on the Crown of the Void in particular. The Crown of the Queen, you can pick whatever one you want from that. We've got 7 of possibilities in there for you to do. And essentially they require that you narrate something before the end of the session. A flashback to who you are or a scene in present day. You'll see there's 7 of those. The Crown of the Void, that's a set of steps. Like we go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and they have different effects. That is the dark conspiracy having its effect on you over the course of play. And let me tell you this, why you would want to mark one of those. I'm going to go hard on the hard moves, on the GM reaction here, because you have access to the crown choices. After a die roll, you can mark one of those and increase your die result by 1 tier. And this is after we narrate. You can wait and hear what the narration is, and then decide to click it, spend that, and we go back and we kind of rewind the scene and do it that way. So everyone has some great, amazing resources for modifying the rolls. So just keep that in mind. Is that okay? That clear? We'll see it in play, but I wanted to get that across because I know we've all played PBTA and there's a little bit of a different play structure here. At the start of session, we're going to do a couple of picks for everybody, and then we're going to do a little vignette. You'll see that you have a list of end of session things. Everybody should have a checkbox by Did Murder Maven Solve Mystery. This is always a trigger for XP. Each of you chooses 2 other triggers right now for your XP at the end of session. Like, if this happens, I'll get to mark an XP. So you'll pick 2 others of those. So, Violet, why don't you give us a scene of everyday life? If we come in a TV show and we're wanting to see who Violet is, what's the scene, what's the bit we see here in this sort of cozy vignette before the mystery starts?
I think what we see in this scene is it's Violet. She's in a store, like a grocery store or something like that, doing grocery shopping and putting healthy food in it. And then we have a TV screen where we see some mayor or bigwig or whatever declaring that people should be really, really happy about the new meat plant opening in Brindlewood Bay, and how that would be such a great opportunity for jobs and meat would be cheaper and stuff like that. And one of the younger employees in the store is like, hey, maybe that's a good thing. And then you can see the Violet going up to him and asking him a few pointed questions about how he should think that this is really a good thing that is happening to this nice little town, and what we really need for meat to be cheaper. There are always more healthy alternatives and stuff like that. And by the end of it, I think the younger person might be a little question, more critical of the whole thing.
So as you walk away, do we see that they are thinking about it, or are they?
Yeah,
okay,
they're thinking
all right,
about it.
all right,
Yeah,
okay,
right.
They're kind of looking at each other. We've got the stock.
And then she
voice
comes
in
back and has another cutting question about the usefulness of this whole plan.
Excellent, excellent. And then Ruby, cut to you. What's a thing we'll see about your daily life?
So I've gotten up, I've eaten my muffin and tea, and heading out in my kind of loose fitting clothes with a hat on. It's kind of a green, meant to blend in a little bit, not quite camouflage. A little splash of color because, well, you have to. And I head down to what would be like the Market Main Street area, closer to the coast, and looking through my binoculars to see some of the coastal birds. I'm not really paying attention. I've got all these birds already in my diary. I'm really looking like I'm doing something as I listen to some of the gossip that I can hear
Just
here
kind
in
of
the hustle and bustle.
just as they move through, probably some tourists here and people as you kind of cover over. What tells us that you're more listening to them than you are watching the birds?
There's a telescoping shot. It kind of has me in focus in the background while there's a group standing chatting, and as they walk away, it telescopes in on me as I turn and make sure I know exactly who said what they said.
Excellent. Rosemary, what do we see on screen for you?
I think Rosemary is finishing a book in a cafe by the seafront.
Do we see the cover?
Yeah, you know what it is. What's it called? The Golden Crown Mysteries.
Okay, reading
Yeah.
another of those. Is this a clean? Do we see a clean spine, or is this a book that you've read before?
I think this is a what's it called? Those preview copies.
Okay. The galleys and the, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Are you a coffee drinker, tea drinker? What do we see?
I think she's got about 3 little espresso cups dotted around the table next to her, and she's drinking from one of them as she reads it, and she has a pen behind it for her as well. She can't help herself, just ticking through, like crossing out lines and adding punctuation and things. Even though this is not her job, she's just doing it while she reads a new story.
Do you imagine that you're the oldest person in the shop, or is this a shop with a lot of retirees?
No, I think this is like it's like the hipstery coffee shop kind of place, like the barista place, because they do the best coffee, right? And like
bulletin board behind you with all kinds of flyers and things and people gigging and stuff on that. Yeah. Okay. All right. And then Bobby, what do we see for you?
The opening shot is her biking down, probably to the same cafe. I was imagining a little bit more hole in the wall, but I kind of like hipster place. And she has kind of the same routine most mornings where she bikes down and she buys a bagel with a smear of cream cheese and a black coffee. She also has, you can see one of the Gold Crown mystery books in the basket of the bike as she's biking down. And basically every time she gets a bagel from this place, she complains to them as that these are not like New York bagels, and that they really need to get their water imported from New York City. And they tire of this, but they put up with it.
There is a little eye rolling, but they had the bagel ready, and to go when you showed up. So we are going to go to the mystery setup now. There are a couple of start of session moves so that we're going to look at that players have. So we're going to talk about those, and then I'm going to set this up. So let's start with Ruby, Scarecrow. So as you are bird watching there, I think there is a crowd of tourists that are kind of moving through, and you are bumped into. And there's that moment where you kind of knocked a little bit, and then the group kind of moves along. They're tourists. They're awful. They're awful people. They come here. They're just a thing. They make a mess. They bring money to the community, but they're always in the way. But when you look down, you will see that one of them has dropped something, and it looks like a watch.
I'll bend down and pick it up and look at it closely.
How do you know that this is your dead husband's watch?
It has the engraving on the back that I put there when I gave it to him for his birthday. It says, "From Ruby with all the love."
Is it in good condition? Is it worn? What's the look of this thing?
It's a pretty worn watch. It's been weathered. It was a waterproof watch, so he would wear it even when out on the boat.
Absolutely. And you'll look around, and that tourist gaggle, you can't identify any one of them who would have done this. It was kind of chaotic, and you have this. It feels perhaps weightier in your hand than you would have expected. And we cut forward a little bit for this. Rosemary, tonight is the night where the group gets together to talk about for your book club. But the espresso by this point in the day has worn off. And we see you in your chair with the pencil, behind your ear, sitting on a chair, and we see you doze off. And in the dream, what color is the water? What do you think, Rosemary?
What color is the chair? Sorry. Is that what you asked?
The chair is, let's say, green, but what color is the water that you're seeing in this dream?
Oh, I think the water is I think like dark red, like slightly tinged. And
you will realize that you're on a boat. You can hear the lapping of the water, and there's that sort of slight rocking as it's going on. And then you hear the of something coming up from under the water, and you'll look over and you'll see there is a body there, and you recognize your husband's clothing. But the body slips and turns over, and it's not his face. And there's your mystery for today. There's your vision, your Dale Cooper-ness.
Thank you.
All right. So we would then go, tonight on Brindlewood Bay, Dad Overboard. That's the title of the mystery. It is Complexity 6. And let's actually go a little bit reverse order here. The four of you are in the loft that you have, that you do your book meeting in. Dan, do you think it's is it above a bookstore, or is it a part of the library, or is it at someone's house, or is it like a senior center? Where do you suppose this is?
Oh no, it's definitely at this cafe that Rosemary and I frequent.
Okay.
And but it's upstairs from the cafe. And whenever we arrive, maybe Rosemary and I are usually the first ones to show up.
Mm-hmm.
And whenever we arrive, whatever kind of, millennials and Gen Zers are up there kind of clear out because they just don't want to be hanging out with us.
Absolutely, absolutely. And you kind of settled in. You've had a chance to since you come here like every week, you've had a chance to maybe personalize the space a little bit. The baristas don't care. What have you added to kind of personalize this loft space for you?
The benches are so uncomfortable, and I've complained so many times, but they have not ever added cushions. So I brought a couple of throw pillows that Rachel knitted for me, which just don't go in my house. So I brought them here and I leave them here. And sometimes I see the kids leaning up against them, but it's fine. It's fine as long as they clear out when I get here.
That is perfect. Rosemary, as we look around here, we've got these pillows, we've got this loft. What's another thing that you have done to maybe personalize or shape this place that you meet for this book group?
We've pushed the tables together to have a like a round table type thing, like maybe they're square tables and we've created like a way that we can all sit around it and face each other kind of thing.
Absolutely. Do they come in, after you leave and move the tables back? Is that sort of a weekly routine for them now?
Yeah, and I think it's got to the point where the barristers will make an effort to go up there and do it first so that they don't have to put it with us saying like, excuse me, dear.
Yeah. And the sound of scraping is perhaps a little bit more restrained. Ruby, for you, what is the thing that you've done to spice up or personalize this loft space?
I got some classic Audubon prints of some birds from our region. I put them up. I presume he painted a loon at one point or something.
Oh yeah. So we've probably got those lovely Audubon prints up here, as well as the art prints by baristas up here. So it's a very mixed bag kind of thing. And Violet, what's another thing? What's a way that you've shaped this loft space that you gather in to be yours?
Well, when I started coming here, all they had on the menu for tea was chamomile and peppermint. And I have introduced them to more interesting tea things, or maybe they had Earl Grey, who knows. More interesting mixtures of tea that you could drink. And I'm still bringing up my own blends, but they have started out expanding their tea menu. By now they have not just more rosehip, but also they have some kind of weird blends that are called Goddess of the Dawn and stuff like that.
Oh, very nice. Little pomegranate flavor ones. That seems appropriate.
Yeah, that seems also appropriate to hipster place anyway. So
yeah. There's a tab called NPCs that I've added in here. You'll see it also is a place to track clues and the number of clues that you have here. You've had this discussion about your book, enjoyable, drunk tea, coffee, when you will hear a heavier footstep trod come up the stairs than the baristas, and it reaches the top step, and you will see Sheriff Wyman Dalrymple, and he has his sheriff's hat held in both hands. You have had some interactions with him over the years, and you've solved some cases. and you can tell he looks uncomfortable here as he comes in, and he's like, "Evening, ladies. How are y'all?"
Why, Sheriff, how nice to see you.
It's fine evening. Fine evening. Enjoy your book.
Oh, have you come to discuss our book with us? Did not know you were a fan.
No, I'm more of a Louis L'Amour kind of a Western reader than that. That's a little more up my alley.
Of course it is, dear.
Well, I do have a fine collection of Zane Grey novels if you'd ever like to come round, Sheriff. I'd be happy to lend them if you would perhaps indulge us and you could read the latest Amanda Dellencourt novel. And then we'd always love to have the insight of law enforcement when we come to discuss the Golden Crown mysteries.
Yes, yeah. Well, I might, yeah, Zane Grey might take you on up on that now. Ladies, I have a little problem, and I was hoping maybe I could possibly get your insight onto a situation which is occurring even as we speak. Would you have time to listen to my story?
Of course, dear. Sit down and have a tea.
Sits down uncomfortably.
Remove the pillow before he's a strong man. He wouldn't want to sit on a lowly pillow, right?
So a few nights ago, ladies, I don't know if you already saw this in the papers or not. We've been trying to keep it a little more quiet. We fished Andrew Krause out of the bay. As you may know, Mr. Krause is a very wealthy financier. And he and his family were out boating. A very nice yacht out there. They're on vacation. The boat right now is anchored out in the bay. The surviving Krauses, Sarah, Amanda, David, and Emily, they assert that Mr. Krause is drunk and simply fell overboard. But I gotta tell you, folks, ladies, I don't know why, but I suspect foul play, but I can't turn anything up on it. I haven't found anything yet. Now, right now we've got the body up at the fish market in the cold storage there before we can ship it back to Boston for the funeral. Mr. Beauregard's taking care of that for us.
Why, Sheriff, who was with Mr. Krause out on the boat?
Oh, the whole family. The Amanda, the wife, his two daughters, Sarah and Emily, David, his son, and the butler, Andrew.
And not one of those people could help poor Mr. Krause?
Apparently, it happened during the night.
Oh, well, I do understand why you think this doesn't quite add up, Sheriff. It's a strange situation for a family to spend their whole time out on the water and not one person hear a single splash.
My thoughts exactly. And I got to tell you, I don't like having to come here literally hat in hand. And you've gotten underfoot before, but sometimes your insights have pointed me in a good direction. So
what you're saying is you're not looking for a nose to be stuck into things, but a helping hand instead.
That seems like a reasonable way to do it. And perhaps you four can prize forth some information that I was unable to do in my investigation.
Well, ladies, what do we think?
How could we say no?
Well,
Always helpful. We're always happy to give our enforcement in the city a hand, or nose, as it might be.
and you can tell he does not want to be here. Like he's clearly at a dead end. Like they are stonewalling him.
And pushing more tea on him.
And he says, well, I should go now. If you pick up anything, if you just give me a call at the sheriff's office.
Here, you have not finished your tea.
It's very floral.
Yes, it
I
is,
know,
isn't it?
Yeah, I mostly like a good cup of Lipton's with about 4 cubes of sugar in it. Like
Did
it
they
nice and
say
sweet.
something about their lawyer when you were talking to them?
Pardon?
Or a testament? Did they say something about a testament when you were talking
They
to them?
have been particularly quiet about those matters.
That's suspicious.
I would say everything about this seems suspicious to me. Do you want to try? We can actually move to, if you want to see if you can get some information that the sheriff might have forgotten here, Violet.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I'm meddling or nosing around or whatever.
Yeah, we'll do the meddling move. So,
Oh, cool.
what do you think this is about? Your presence is about keeping calm, is about leveraging your smarts against the sheriff.
I think right now I'm totally leveraging my smarts. So that's always there because I don't respect him for his smartness. But right now I wouldn't want to make him feel that he can talk to us because I'm asking a lot of leading questions, and that I think that's more presence than anything else. So I'm rolling this. Oh, I've rolled a 10. So I'm at
Rolled
11.
10.
Yeah.
So he will say, you said testament, right?
Mm-hmm.
Says there was one thing I did find very clear to me that they did not want me to see it, but it wasn't a will per se, but a set of instructions clearly made out by the late Mr. Krause. A set of instructions to cut Sarah Krause out of the will.
Oh, why? But I'm glad you've started poking your nose into things yourself. And I pat him on the wrist, like I'm so proud of you.
Bobby, you've been particularly quiet. Let me turn to you before the sheriff gets out of here without drinking his tea.
Sheriff, do they have an attorney in town, or do they use an attorney in Boston?
They have an attorney driving down from Boston right now, has not arrived, which seems a little odd. I have the sense that maybe he was taking care of some things in Boston before he drove down here.
Is he returning from Boston, or is he based here in town?
He's from Boston.
Oh, yes, I know all the attorneys here in Boston. So.
Yep.
And when do you expect him to arrive? Do you think we can chat with him tonight?
He is supposed to arrive in the morning, so that's all I can tell you.
You say the boat is anchored in the bay? The yacht is anchored in the bay. Is that something we could visit this evening? Are your deputies still have it in their possession?
If you were to, say, head down to the docks and speak to Mr. Stillwell down there, I have maybe in passing mentioned that some people might be going out to the boat, and might be some ladies. heading out there. So if you need to go out there, you should do that. I would be careful, as several of you know, the it can be dangerous out at night on the water like that.
I'm from Brooklyn. I can take care of myself. And now, Sheriff, did you call Rachel like I told you to? She's still single.
Well, I will get right on that, Miss Bobby. I should go, and he will stand up and excuse himself. You can tell, even as he leaves, he's already regretting this. like he's already regretting and hoping that this he doesn't know what he hopes at this point.
Bobby, your Rachel can do, no offense, a little bit better than our poor sheriff there.
Well, that's kind of you to say, but I've been waiting and waiting and waiting, so I'm desperate at this point.
So you know where the body's at. He seemed to have indicated that at least some of the family is ashore right now. They've got access to the boat.
Do we know how old the kids are?
Sarah Krause, looks like they're all adults. Emily is the youngest of them.
Mm-hmm. But they're all adults. Cool.
Yes.
Yeah. I just didn't want to be like, I'll go speak to the 5-year-old. Which is maybe something we would do, but it would be a completely different approach, right?
Different framework there.
Yeah.
So would you like to all go together somewhere? Would you like to split up? I should mention one thing. So whenever I run mysteries, the assumption is if someone goes and investigates a scene, we assume that information, when we go to the next scene, the other players have, just for purposes of not having to parrot things from scene to scene. Rose, you were talking, so what do you think?
I mean, if we can talk our way into seeing the body, I think that Rose remembers that dream and wants to see, you know.
So how do you put that to your companions here? This, it's 9:30 at night. Super late.
Yeah, but you did say we could go down to the fish market, and we could perhaps see it. So, ladies, I wouldn't mind taking a look at poor Mr. Krause myself, and I think perhaps I might be best suited for such a thing. Strong constitution and all.
You go do that. I've seen one drowned man, and that was quite enough for me. And I would, though, go and pay my condolences to poor Mrs. Krause. I mean, I can so well understand her situation.
Yes, I lost my husband too. I think I'll go with you, Violet, if you do not mind.
I do not mind.
Make sure you get some of those brownies they got down there on the counter. That'll go down a treat with anybody. Comfort food, you know?
And I'll join Rose at Rosemary at the fish market.
Okay.
I'm not getting on the back of your bicycle, Rose. We are going to have to take my car.
We've done this before. You actually have a bike rack on your car.
Yes. Yeah.
It's probably just a few blocks down. 9:30 at night, so there's still some tourists out, walking, maybe the outdoor eating. You'll make your way down to the market. People are still doing things here, but it's not as busy as it is during the day. And you will ask around about this, and they'll say, "Oh yeah, Etienne has that," and they kind of look a little like, and they'll point you towards him, and you will see a jovial Santa Claus-like man, big bushy gray beard, has the fishmonger's outfit on. There's apron. It's got it's been cleaned, but you can't get all of the fish guts and juice off of it. So it always has that little bit of that coloration to it. and he sees you coming. He's like, "Hello, ladies."
Hello, sir.
The sheriff told me that you might be coming down to look at poor Mr. Andrew.
Yes, a grisly thing, but still, in times of need, we must step forward. And
Yeah, I appreciate it. This is a tragedy. A tragedy.
Did you know him?
Oh, absolutely. I owe Andrew Krause everything here. All of my labor work here, everything's because of his faith and investment in me. And I'd do anything for him. So when they asked me to put the body on ice, I just pushed aside the pollock and the cod and got him in there.
well, I will pick. If you would let that defrost, I will take some of that to go in the morning, sir. I would hate to see you out of pocket for doing your civic duty.
Well, that is very nice. Oh yeah, I'm sorry. It's not Andrew. It's Albert. Albert.
Yeah.
I apologize. There's a lot of A names in this. So to open up the cold room, take you in. Super chilly. We can see your breath in the air there as you go through, piled high with some of the fish that's going to get sold out that didn't sell today. We sent on, and ice packs and things, and we'll take you down to this big ice cabinet, and literally he has pushed the fish aside, and you will see the body of Albert Krause there. And Rose, it's a little freaky because that face is the face that you saw in your dream.
I think, reaches out her hand, touches the face, and then like catches herself before she, does it in front of everybody. She's like, well, poor man. And how do we go about this, do you think, Bobby?
I think I noticed maybe that you sort of start a bit. So I say, Rose, are you okay?
Just looked like someone recognized once upon a time.
Did you ever meet Albert before?
I don't believe so, no.
Oh, okay. I produce my Loupe, my jeweler's Loupe, and I start examining the body.
Excellent.
I don't even know what I'm looking for. I just think this is what Amanda Delacourt would do. So.
Absolutely. So you should roll the metal move, the meddling. You can mark your Loupe, and you can roll with advantage then. What do you think? This seems like reason, right?
Let's see. Okay, make sure I'm not. Yeah, totally. Definitely reason. So I'm going to add another die to this, and then I will roll. Wow, 3 4s. So that's an 8 plus 2 is 10 plus 1 for the Loupe is 11.
11. So I think that you will check out the body. Very clearly drowned. The thing that will strike you is kind of look. He has a very nice Rolex watch. The kind of ostentatious display of wealth that comes from those. And you will notice that it is set off by about an hour. That seems unusual. Why is the watch off? It is an hour fast.
But the watch is otherwise waterproof, so it wasn't affected by.
Yeah, you check it out. It's definitely waterproof. It's definitely ticking and running. It doesn't seem like the water would have done this to that.
ask ATM, did anyone disturb the body or mess with the watch?
No, I don't think so. After they found him, the sheriff called me and brought him right here, and except for the doc, you're the only people who've looked at it. Rose, what is your thought here?
I think I'm hoping that perhaps some element of my dream and something that I see here might, you know what I mean, like kind of flicker, like trigger a recognition or make me look into a pocket or something. Like comparing what I saw of the body before, like, that lines up perfectly with my dream kind of thing. Like maybe he has something that's exactly like something Arthur once wore.
That's perfect. So when you're reaching into the sort of the weird, you'll still roll the meddling move, but you'll use your sensitivity for this.
Cool. Yeah, because I did keep looking at the occult move and then thinking, nah, that doesn't work. And then like, no, I don't need to do the occult move just because it's sensitivity. Cool. That is a 6.
That is a 6. So I think when you lean forward and you kind of go and look at it, there is a moment in your mind's eye when those eyes pop open and they're fish eyes, and you kind of you blink and you kind of step back, and you are shaken, and I am going to give you the condition shaken there, and probably enough that you bump back against one of these racks and knock a bunch of things onto the floor. Fish and ice go and salt goes spilling everywhere. And Etienne's like, "What are you doing?"
I am sorry, Etienne. I just simply stumbled a second. You will forgive a lady, won't you?
I will, but you two need to move on. You've had your look, and let Mr. Albert have his peace, his privacy.
Indeed.
He'll kind of push you out of here, and then locks the freezer. Let me cut from that to Violet and Ruby. Yes, my New England accent is terrible, so we do have a lot of that here. Mostly it's going to be Minnesota type, but anyway. So where in town do you think Amanda Krause is staying? If she's not staying on the boat, where, and she doesn't live here, where is she staying, Violet?
I imagine she's staying at we've established that there are some tourists here, so there will be hotels, and at least one of them will be a bit more fancy and modern than the others. Sticks out like a sore thumb, really, with a modernist architecture, and everything is boxy and blocky, and the bushes are pruned into weird sizes. Yeah. That's not a bed and breakfast, though. That's a real hotel where the people that confuse this with the Hamptons would go.
Ruby, this hotel, it's more modernist, kind of redone. It's a converted older part building in the town. What did it used to be?
It used to be the White Wave Inn. Big classic beach resort for New England before it was bought up, and the front and the exterior was redone.
Is it still called the White Wave?
No, it's just called the Wave now. To match the swooping, curving front of the building.
And you will go in, and the locals know you, and the concierge comes over and says, "Ah, Miss Violet, how are you today?"
Oh, I'm quite well. I mean, the weather has been, and I'm start talking about a bit about the weather and stuff like that. Just to,
and the rain. Oh yes, 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 yes,
Oh.
yes.
yes, terrible.
But this late at night, I assume that there's something that you and Miss Ruby require.
Oh, we heard about that terrible, terrible accident that Albert Krause had, and it reminded me so much of my dear Barney going overboard, and I just felt that I should pay my condolences to Mrs. Krause and their family. It's such a terrible, terrible thing, and we've brought brownies and.
Oh, well, I sure that should I call up, or she is in room 212. If you wish to go up and call on
Oh,
her.
thank you. You don't need to bother to call. We'll just drop in. We're polite. And I smile up at this person. I imagine Violet is really very pretty much on the small side.
Yes, go on up then.
Thank you. You are a
Thank you.
doll.
And the two of you can walk up. You see, of course, that each of these rooms, this is like the Paul Revere room. They have the Alexander Hamilton suite, all of those things, very, very tourist trappy in its own way, but they're very sophisticated now. Tell me what you're doing.
I think first of all we should maybe listen.
You want to listen at the door.
I mean, we can hardly barge in if there's an argument, right? We wouldn't do that.
Let's have you roll meddling.
Do you want to do it, Scott?
I'll do it.
What do you think is appropriate for this? Is this reason? Is this something else?
Yeah, I think it's a reason.
Then let's have you roll.
Pick a color here. Nobody's taken magenta.
And while you're doing that, I'll say, vitality is anything physical, strength, dexterity, endurance, athleticism. Composure is being calm, intense concentration, requiring a steady hand, trying to avoid getting a fear-based reaction. Reason is studying, researching, examining a crime scene, anything mental. And then presence is, charming, intimidating, capturing someone's imagination. So that's the general look of those stats.
All right. Well, I got a 13.
You got a 13. So let's give you both a clue and a void clue. I think that you will hear an argument going on between two people in there. But the problem is that these are thick walls. You can't make out what they're saying. Maybe you recognize generally the Amanda Krause's voice in there, but you don't recognize the other. But then the door will come open and you will see this tallish, gray-haired man coming out. He's kind of flushed, and you realize that this is Andrew the butler. And he kind of stops. You can tell he was planning on like leaving in a huff, but he stops there and he's like, ladies.
Oh, hello, dear. We're here to pay our condolences to Mrs. Krause. We're not interrupting anything. We just arrived.
No, hold on. I will announce you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. It said, thank you, dear. I don't call people sir. I call them dear.
Ruby, as you're standing there and Violet's talking to this butler, there's a moment where going past in the hall, past you, you'll see this fisherman. Looks a little out of place, like maybe he's coming from someplace. And just kind of walking past. And you notice that he has a set of tattoos down the side of his face that kind of run along there. And just for a moment, as he passes, you see those tattoos shift and move. And there's like a mermaid pattern for a second, but then it goes back to being this abstract tribal tattoo. And you look again and you're not sure what you saw.
Goodness.
And the butler, Andrew, brings you in, and you will see a sort of a graceful, thin, like super thin, well-dressed, gossamer diaphanous blouse, and every hair has clearly been done today again. She's got a large gin and tonic by her, and she's got a phone, and she sees you come in. Clearly, she's still on the tail end of whatever argument was going on, and she sees you come in, and she immediately like, "Oh, can I help you?"
So just 1 second. This is Amanda, right? Not Sarah.
This is Amanda.
The eldest daughter.
The wife is Amanda.
Oh, the wife is Amanda and Sarah is the daughter.
Sarah's the daughter.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
I'm going to get this all confused.
It's fine. I'll just have to change the descriptions here, so we won't get confused more. So of course I will then go over to her and offer my condolences. It's terrible what has happened to Mr. Krause. And I remember when my old Barney went over his side of his boat. It was just, I just wanted to come to you, dear, and offer some sort of support here. Such a terrible tragedy.
So you're trying to ingratiate yourself so he doesn't like throw you out, right?
Yeah. Yes.
So I would like you to roll the night move.
Ooh.
And I think presence is probably the appropriate way to do this.
Mm-hmm. I have to name what I'm afraid will happen if I fail or lose my nerve.
Yeah.
What I'm afraid will happen here is that she will stonewall. Not that she will throw us out, but that she will stonewall and wrap us around and just talk over us and not give us anything, and not give us an into our emotional state, right? That's what I'm afraid of. That
I think that's a perfect assessment.
Yeah. So I'm rolling with presence now. Count of 12.
Count of 12. She says, "Well, thank you, Violet. Was it?"
Yes.
But please come and sit down. You and Miss.
This is my friend Ruby.
Sit down. It's very nice of you to come in here. You certainly have more grace and manners than the sheriff did. So I appreciate your sympathy. You say your husband passed in this way?
Yes. He fell over the side of his boat when he was out. He was alone when I found his boat, but, well, I know him. There was a terrible storm.
I'm sure it was a horrible inconvenience. I'm sure it was. My Albert, trust him to fall over the side and drown when we're on the cusp of this major fundraiser. It's just like him to mess up things. We're delayed here for several days. I need to get back to Boston. No, this charity event isn't going to organize itself. You may have heard of it. It's the annual Warriors Ball. It's a fundraiser for veterans suffering from testicular cancer. It's a very, very, very worthy cause.
It's so inconsiderate of him, really. And that sheriff, he has no sense of propriety, really.
What do you suppose is the extra benefit you're going to get that she is so like she wants to talk to somebody? What are you getting here, you think?
Yeah, I think that maybe she's now talkative, extra advantage. Maybe one of the kids comes in and decides to have a reaction to this, basically, whatever that is.
You will see that there's a knock at the door. Andrew has still sort of stood there like he wants to overhear what's going on in the conversation. And he opens the door, and you will see this frumpy young woman kind of wringing her hands. And she's coming in, and she's like, Violet, Miss Ruby, this is my daughter, Sarah. She's a homemaker. And you see Sarah's like, I want to talk, and she says, just sit down, stop stammering, just sit. I'll be with you in a bit, Sarah.
I think I will try to keep a bit of Amanda's attention while maybe Ruby can scoot over to Sarah.
Ruby, let's do a move from you, and then we'll flip back to the others.
All right.
What do you want to do here? How do you want to approach this? This young woman, frumpy, kind of her hair is clearly she hasn't taken care of it. It's kind of frizzed from the salt air and so on, and you can see that she's clearly been crying. Like she's clearly been crying.
Oh, doll, I can see you're taking this very hard. Let me comb your hair. You let me fix that for you.
Oh.
It's okay to be sad. We're here to help.
So do you think you're more interested in ingratiating yourself, or you were trying to get something out of her? What are you
I
trying
think
to
I am
do
ingratiating myself to her.
Then let's have you do presents.
Righty.
What do you think is the worst thing that could happen here?
The worst thing is that she's so distraught that she doesn't want anybody near her at all, and just clams up and doesn't it takes offense
Right.
at me and never really talks to me again.
Let's have you roll presents.
Presence is a flat 0. All right. Six.
That is a 6. So she is going to shriek, bust out just sobbing tears, and rush from the room. Now you have a couple options. You can use a crown move. You can use the golden crown. What do you want to do?
I think I'm going to try a crown move.
What do you want to mark?
So are they specific, or do they? That's what I was unclear on.
Meaning?
So the names of them, are they specific to specific effects, or they're just
Yes.
part of the void?
The crown of the queen move, you can pick any of those and get that result. The crown of the void, they go in order, and actually there's a little note that tells you what the effect is of that, because the crown of the void move can cause you.
Oh, I see the note now.
Yeah.
So I am just one off. Ooh, the void.
Either one of those. You can go for the gentle one.
Go for the gentle one. I'm going to do the your fondest memory with one of your children. And it's going to be Jennifer and Jonathan were outside. It was a lazy summer Sunday in our yard, and they were actually playing with their father, who was there with them. And he was kind of chasing them around like a monster, like and they were younger, but it was a happy moment when all four of us were together.
And I think that you will maybe start talking about her. You can see, you have the sense, just the intuition that maybe she's a mom. And you talk with her a little bit about that, and you kind of put her at ease. But you will notice that the butler, Andrew, who's standing there, there's something about the way he's watching you, like he does not care for you getting in there and talking to Sarah. Does that sound like a fair cost or complication?
Yeah, and it's specifically Sarah that I think he's kind of being not so much protective, but focused on.
Yeah, it's very
okay.
strange.
All right.
Let's cut back to Rose and Bobby. Rose just had a very strange reaction in there.
Rose, I've never seen you lose your footing like that before. Are you sure everything is okay?
I apologize, Bobby. It's just reminded me of my dear husband for a moment. I swear I've been dreaming of him lately, and dreaming of such awful things.
Well, you don't ever have to apologize to me for such things. Why don't we go to, I know it's late at night, but let's walk along Main Street and take a peek in that old bookstore that sells the old books. What I'm trying to do is engineer a cozy move here.
That sounds good to me. Comparing through the window at the things, would that work? You're muted.
Well, you're muted.
I just cursed. I'm glad I'm muted. So what's the name of the bookstore? So you could go down, walk down the street. What's it called?
Burroughs?
I like
The novel hovel. Yeah, the novel hovel. That's a good one.
Yeah.
Novel hovel.
Classic.
It's one of those places that has like a back section where they've actually got paperbacks that, old romance and stuff. But up front, they've got like all the high priced, fancy looking editions, author signed copies, that kind of thing that are clearly overpriced. But what do you see in the window that is interesting to you, Rose?
I see a second edition, not a first edition, a second edition, but a rare second edition signed of Trapped in Lace, the Gold Crown mystery novel, the third Gold Crown mystery novel featuring Amanda Dellencourt.
They got a different, once they realized that the series was going well, they got a different cover artist. It's a different flyleaf illustration.
They toned down the slightly risque cover art. That was
exactly. It doesn't quite look like it, like a pulp novel now. And what do you say? What do you say to her, Bobby?
I say, Rose, you and I have done so many of these little investigations. We always stumble upon things that are that maybe hit a little close to home. But I just want you to know you can always count on me if you need someone to lean on, someone to talk to. You know, I love Violet and Ruby, but they just don't understand big city girls like us. So if you ever need, if you ever, you know, if you need someone to talk to, you can count on.
I know, Rose, and I know, and Barbara, and I know that you'll always point me towards the best bagel in town. So,
for what passes for a bagel in this town.
I declare, yes. I would. So, how does the cozy move work?
So one of you engaged in a cozy activity. So choose two from below if it's your cozy activity. And I think we've established that it is one that you're connecting.
My cozy activity, yes.
Yeah. So let's have you each choose one from that list.
Okay.
Cool. You know, like, I'm not going to clear that condition as nice as it is. I'm going to stumble on a clue relevant to the active mystery, if that's a possibility.
Sure. What is the clue you stumble
on? There is because we're looking in through the window of the bookshop, right?
Yeah.
I think there is a space for a book that has a card in it saying purchased by Kraus. So, yeah. And I don't know what that book, you know what I mean? Something significant is about that book or the purchase or anything like that.
Absolutely. You can mark that in the clue list, and you can fill that in with more detail later. So that kind of frames that up. Bobby, what do you want to pick there?
I'm thinking that I'd say we should go pay the doctor a visit. So I'm asking Rose to agree to a course of action. And even though it's late at night, I'm eager to chat up the doctor who examined the body.
Well, what will he think when we show up on his doorstep at this time of night? But do lead on, Bobby.
So it's a town. It's a few blocks away. You'll go to the doctor's house. You know, he has the little clinic next door to the house. What's the doctor's name, Bobby?
I think it's a young woman, actually.
Okay.
And her name is Nicole Jones.
And she bought out old Doc Hazlitt a couple of years ago, and has been here, is still getting used to the place. You ring the bell, and this young woman comes very quickly to the door. And you know, she sees the two of you, and she grabs her coat, and she's like, "What's going on? What happened? Where are they?"
Bobby always makes it her business to call Dr. Jones by her first name because she's so much younger. So she says, "Nicole, there's no, settle down. There's no emergency. I just Rose and I just had a few questions for you about Mr. Kraus."
Well, we'll come in. She seems a little wary. She said the sheriff did mention something about the Mavens.
That's us. Yeah, you'll come to know that we, make it our business to help the sheriff solve the most difficult mysteries in our little town.
You know, my late husband, he helped a detective up in Chicago deal with a rather nasty case of serial murders. while he was researching his novel. So we have always liked to carry on in that tradition.
Yeah.
Do you think this is a serial killer?
Oh, no, by no means. I simply mean to say that, an outside perspective can sometimes be most useful.
Well, we'll come in. Sit down. Sit down. She's still got the old doctor's furniture, so it's plastic covered. That she probably brought. There's a bigger TV in there. You see that she's binge watching. Got a big bowl of popcorn there, and she gestures for both of you to sit down. So what is it you wanted to know?
Just did you find anything unusual when you were examining the body of Albert Krauss?
Let's have you roll meddling. I don't think you have to butter her up because she is a doctor. She's been told about you.
Yeah, I think I'd like to use composure here, like I'm not intimidated by her credentials. Or, I think that's a 7 plus 1 is 8.
So I think that the doctor says, well, there is one thing. But I think even for the viewing audience at home, we will see that there is a figure outside the window listening in. Shadowy figure that neither and none of you see. They told us that he died at midnight. But given the tides and given the body temperature and so on, I'd put the time of death a couple of hours earlier than that.
Well, that is very, very helpful.
I assume they misremembered or something, but it stuck with me. I mentioned it to the sheriff, but he thought it was just a logistical problem.
Yeah, they were so shaken up. It's hard to, at night on a boat, it's hard for people to know exactly what time it is.
Rose, anything you want to say here?
I'm really eager to use the Gold Crown Mystery move. I'm just wondering if that's too early in the game to use it.
It's once per session.
Yeah. Thumbs up, everyone, to use it? Oh, yeah? Cool. Okay. Wow, the clock was set. The time of death does not match up with what was reported. That reminds me of the sign at the Bloody Violin when Amanda Deloncourt was investigating the mystery of how that poor professional ice skater plunged through the ice at exactly midnight, but the body was found to have been deceased long before. I think
you can take a 12 plus on a particular thing, probably the meddling move.
Yeah.
Or you can state a fact about the current situation.
I think I'd just like to take a 12 on the meddling move.
Okay.
And I think that's with the idea of having some kind of around what could possibly account for this discrepancy or occur to me or whatever, right?
So the clue you get, let me look here at this. I'm looking over the things. She said, did the sheriff show you the papers that they found that They were found nearby, but they weren't with Albert. The sheriff dismissed them as just other debris that had washed up, but they seemed a little odd to me.
No, he did not share that information with us, but you know how the sheriff is, has so many things filling up his busy mind.
Well, they were obscured. Clearly someone had done some work to remove the names, but it looked like a pair of birth certificates, which seems so unusual to turn up. It was very strange.
Why?
Where are those birth certificates now?
I think the sheriff has them in his office, probably tagged for the evidence. He grabbed it up, but he didn't make much of it, especially with the names such obscured.
Interesting. Nice.
Does that seem like a fair thing?
Yes, it does.
Okay.
Yeah. I also find a void clue or learn something about the dark conspiracy. I'm happy to park that if you want to.
Let me check one thing here. I think this finishes up with the doctor, let's say.
Mm-hmm.
I think the two of you will step outside. You're still feeling a little squeamish after that thing earlier. And
I think especially because her predecessor was the one who ruled my husband's death as suicide.
yes,
Bringing back bad memories.
I think that you will see as you kind of walk out onto the street, you see there's a and you realize there's a fish flopping there on the ground, and you kind of stop, Rose, and you kind of look at it, and it flips and it says one word to you: void. And then it's still.
Can I hear that too, or is that only
You
Rose?
do not hear that, Bobby.
Oh.
You look over and you see that there's a fish by Rose's foot.
Who could have left a fish here in the road? Did you hear anything, Bobby?
No. Hear what?
Then, never mind. I'm sorry. I think this is rather taking it out of me. I must. If only I could get myself another espresso.
Let's cut back to Violet speaking with Amanda Krause. She certainly opened up to you. She's not a nice woman.
No, I didn't get.
And
don't
very
think so.
self-absorbed. And so what's your strategy for eliciting information from her?
I think I will feed into her self-absorption, right? Like flattering her and getting her to talk about her relationship with her husband and her children and how ungrateful children can be, which is probably what she thinks anyway. And I'm trying to get her to tell me. I will absolutely throw the sheriff under the bus and mention that he said something that somebody might have been cut out of the will here. That would be how I could not imagine how somebody would do that and then wait for the fireworks, I guess.
Let's have you make that roll.
Yeah. I think it's still presence, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And I'm doing that's a meddling roll, right?
Absolutely.
Cool. So I have still the Frank Colombo move. Let me see what that does with perception when I do the meddling. Move in the place occupied by the rich and famous.
Yes.
You find an additional clue even on a miss. So
Okay.
I guess I will say that I'm using that now. Okay, which was a good idea. I have a 8, so that's fine.
You could certainly mark a crown and bump that up to a 10.
Let me see what the
Then you'd have no
menu-
complications. And 2 clues.
Complications would be so much fun, and I'd have 2 clues anyway. We have a few complications, I feel.
Absolutely. So we'll come back to the complication here in a moment, but the 2 clues. I think there is a bit where she is still talking and she stands up and she goes over to the bar and she's kind of got her back to you. And she's, just kind of talking and doing this litany of how her husband's, caused all these problems and this charity event and so on. And she just kind of keeps cycling over and over. And you can see that Ruby and the daughter are kind of engaged in conversation, but you will notice, Violet, that there are some papers nearby that you take a moment, kind of lean over, and you will get a couple of lists there. One of the things you'll see is there is definitely a guest list for the Krause party that's coming up for this big charity thing. And you will notice that there's the list of staff, and that Andrew, the butler's name, is crossed out, as is the daughter Sarah's name.
Ooh.
And the other thing that you will note is a typed letter that simply says, your debts must be paid, and paid in full, or everything will come out.
Oh. Neat. I think there's no chance of me just swiping this letter, right? Or is
Oh,
there?
do you want to steal it?
I mean, could happen to fall into my handbag, I guess.
Sure, that's a night move.
Yeah, okay. I am at this point. I am pretty much afraid that I will get caught trying to swipe a letter here, and that she will throw us both out and make a big scene about this. I don't much like to be the center of a big scene, I guess. And I'm rolling this night move with composure, I guess, right?
That seems good.
Okay, wait a sec. Let me write down my clue and then I'll check what composure I'm rolling with. Oh, it's a 1. Cool. It's a 7. Yeah, it's a 7.
It's a 7. I think that you will be able to swipe it, but I think that the lights go out. I'll come to what happens when the lights go out in just a second. I'm going to roll back.
Wait.
Unless you want to change it. You want a crown?
I really want to. No, I really don't want lights to go out. I think I want to. I think I will. Yeah. Remember at this point where I was an imperfect daughter.
Okay.
Because when I was a kid, I always liked books, and my parents were pretty strict, and they didn't like for me to have my own books like that and stuff, and they didn't want me to go to the library, would just put ideas into my head. So when I was a kid, I used to kind of get books from the library, even though I didn't have a card.
Okay.
And remembering that, I remember the way I used to do this, and like watch for where the attention's at, and maybe kind of be kind of careful, and then look somewhere else, and then just swipe it. So
And you do, as you do look up, you see that Ruby is talking to Sarah. And while she didn't see you lift papers, she did see you going through the papers. Like she saw that. Does that seem like a fair complication from the
yeah,
previous thing?
that's fair. So Sarah saw that, right?
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, that's fair.
Ruby, you've kind of gotten Sarah, talk to her mother to mother. You've got her attention here. What is it that you want to do?
So she's the mom, big family here. Are you worried about taking care of your family now that, what's his name, Arthur? Bad with names.
Albert.
Albert. Are you worried about taking care of your family now that Albert's gone? Do you have the means?
My father helped us out. I'm sure that I and my children will be taken care of well.
You seem distraught. How close were you with Albert?
It was my father, very, very close, though he was more interested in the business than taking care of things. But I really loved him. I care. The others don't seem upset at all, but he meant the world to me.
Yeah, my Jennifer and my Jonathan, they were the same after Jonathan Sr. passed away. They're very distraught. It's understandable.
I hope they're okay. My children aren't with me. They're in Boston, as my mother insisted that we not bring them along.
Family reunion without the grandkids?
Let us. I think we're going to have you make a roll here for me. I think this is a meddling.
Yep. And let's see. Oh my God. I rolled snake eyes.
You rolled snake eyes. Would you like to push that up by marking a crown?
I think I do.
Because I think the worst thing here, what do you think that would be? Let's just so we get that on the table, so we establish that. I always forget that little section of the move. Oh, this is meddling. This is not a night move. I'm sorry. I'm thinking of something else. But right now, you're not going to get a clue, and I am going to give you a reaction. Unless you want to mark a crown.
Now, I do want to mark a crown. I think the worst thing that can happen is that she just won't talk about the family anymore. You know, this is family business. You know.
Absolutely. And she says, as you talk to her, mark the we'll come and we'll resolve what the crown is in just a second. She says, when you say that about her mother, she leans in and she says, yes, you'd think that she'd want to have all of her kids here. And then she realizes what she said, what she's implied. that her children aren't her own, but are her mother's. And she puts her hand over her mouth, and you see Andrew the butler kind of steps up and, Miss Sarah, you seem distraught. Let's move you on back to your room, and kind of lifts her up out of the chair. And her face has gone flushed, and he will move to escort her out of the room. Does that seem fair?
That's good. That's really good.
Shall we bring the four of you back together?
Yeah.
Where would you meet? Is the coffee shop still open this late at night?
I feel like meeting up in one of our houses, perhaps.
Whose house? Who's the closest to downtown?
Bobby's, maybe?
Pardon?
Bobby's, maybe? Because she seems the downtown.
Oh, yeah. So
Kind of
tell us what your house looks like. In 1-story, 2-story?
It's a little 2-story. It's a 1-story Cape Cod style house, and it's kept. It's fine. I'm not much of a gardener, so things are a little kind of overgrown there. But it's
Have somebody in from time to time?
Yeah, but I don't really like wasting money on that sort of thing.
So we see the four of you sitting around. We get that bit where you're exchanging information. Is it you? What are your theories here?
Well, the one thing I can't account for is that Rolex watch being set off by an hour. But it seems as though Amanda and Albert had their differences if he was looking to write her out of the will. And with those birth certificates and that letter with Andrew's name and Sarah's crossed out, I suspect maybe there's some sort of infidelity at work within the Kraus family.
Yeah, I think you have that right, and I think somebody was trying to blackmail one of them, either Amanda or Albert, but I think most likely Amanda. And then maybe she decided to take matters into her own hand, or have the butler do that. I don't know. She argued with him when we came there, so though I'm not entirely sure.
Sarah seemed to imply that Amanda was the mother of Sarah's own children. Do you think Albert didn't know until recently?
Yeah, probably somebody tried to. Maybe he never found out. Maybe somebody tried to put the thumbscrews on Amanda, and she thought, well, if I can't kill the blackmailer, I can't kill my husband, and then that's that. But maybe he already had some idea. But I don't know what the watch means. So
they killed poor Mr. Kraus, drowning him before dropping him into the water.
yeah,
Bobby, what's your thoughts?
Bobby's still processing. But Bobby made note that Sarah was more upset than anybody else. And she's particularly interested in this book that was purchased by Albert, and wonders if it was, he bought it because it wasn't a book in particular that he was interested in, but maybe it had an inscription in it or something that spoke to Amanda's infidelity.
mm-hmm.
So your suggestion is that Amanda did this, that there was a blackmail happening because of the children that Sarah is apparently raising for her mother as her own. Some sort of that's coming from some kind of infidelity, and that rather than subject herself to the blackmail, Amanda decided to kill her husband, and killed him before he went in the water, and that's the reason for the time discrepancy.
Yeah, she probably didn't want her daughter to know, so I'd assume that Sarah wasn't in on this.
And the person who sent the letter, is that perhaps the butler?
Yeah,
He's definitely
maybe.
involved somehow because he was cut out of the invite list. So either he's.
He knew something about this, and he was watching Sarah, right?
Could have been
you
the
talked to
father.
her. Yeah, rich people are very, very strange.
It sounds like you have something of a solution, but let's see if there's anything we can add to this before we go to a roll. Any other details?
So do we want to try to fit in any of these void clues?
The void clues actually stay outside of that sort of frame.
Okay, that's cool.
Yeah.
So
the difficulty is a 6. You have 9 clues, so you are rolling the theorize move with a +3.
Whee!
Who wants to roll?
Who's been rolling hot?
Not
me.
Scott.
Not me either.
I've been rolling pretty well at the beginning, but not recently. But I can do it before we before we suffer indecision paralysis. So
Okay.
I roll with +3. Yeah, okay. So it's a 7. It's a 10.
A 10.
Yeah.
So I think there'll be a knock at your door, Bobby. And do you answer that?
Yes. I don't open it, though.
Okay.
I ask who's there. I have one of those on the door.
And you will see it's the Dr. Nicole.
And so I let her in. I say, Nicole, are you okay? What brings you here?
And you open the door and you see Nicole kind of pushed in a little bit. And you will see Amanda Krause behind her.
Oh, no.
And
I say, Amanda, you're better than this. Leave this poor girl alone.
She says, get in. She kind of pushes the doctor in.
I try and lead Nicole away from Amanda.
She lets her move, but she's got this pistol, and she's looking. She looks and she swings it around at you, and she says, "Andrew said that you were poking around in this matter, and I just found out tonight that maybe you found some birth certificates."
Would they belong to you by any chance, Miss Krause?
I think you already know the answer to that.
How did your husband find out?
I was indiscreet in a book sale a few weeks ago. Somehow they ended up here in this godforsaken end of the world. My husband recognized the book, one of those awful Delacorte novels, and...
Whoa. I'll allow it. Continue.
Found some letters I'd always, when I'd had the children gone off to a sanitarium to rest and recover, my husband thought nothing of it. I had an arrangement with my daughter. But I did not love my husband.
Just his money, I take it.
Just his money and his butler.
But your butler was the one who was blackmailing you, no?
That will be resolved.
Wow.
And she says, but I think this is going to be a tragic killing. Perhaps a suicide pact between some old biddies who'd ended their days here in this back of the woods, small town New England.
You are leaving clues all around. Even Sheriff Dalrymple can figure this one out.
Especially since I rang him before we met. He should be coming any second now.
I think this is a night move from someone.
I was aiming to go with composure, perhaps, if that's okay.
That seems fair.
Yeah, because I don't know if this is a bluff or I did actually do that. Does my shaking come into this at all?
Oh yeah, I think that's a disadvantage.
Cool. Okay, I will roll one of the grey dice as disadvantage. Sorry, my roll 20's been a bit. Cool. So that is a 11 anyways.
That's an 11 anyways.
Yeah.
Wow.
So she looks, her head turns, she realizes what you're implying. You see her look, she's trapped, see, and you see her turn and go to run out the front door, and we hear this oof as she smashes into Dalrymple, and the two of them go tumbling down the steps into the street. What do you do, Bobby?
I think I run after them.
Okay.
And try and grab her gun.
Absolutely. You can go run out there, grab the gun off the street. Dalrymple's like, he clearly was just coming by to see if you'd found anything out because he's under so much pressure. And you can see he brought some cake. It's all over him. And he's laying there in the street. Ruby, what do you do?
Did she drop her pistol?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Bobby's got a hold of it.
I say Bobby's got the pistol. I know what's his name? I know that Wyman is just going to be useless in this situation. I reach down and I grab his handcuffs from his belt.
Yeah, absolutely. You can slam those on him as the four of you come out. The doctor behind who will back up what you're saying. The sheriff gets up. You tell him what's going on, and he's like, just as I thought, and lifts Amanda up, and you have the right to remain silent. You have the right, but the attorney, and you have the right to pay for my cleaning. And he wipes cake off of his shirt there. And that is the solution to the mystery. We're going to go to the end of session questions. I think we have, there's at least, I think, one crown that's still outstanding. Was that from you, Scott, before I go to end of session? Or did we
It was how I was an imperfect mother.
How were you an imperfect mother before we go to that?
when after their father died, the kids had to take care of me, even though they were, one was a teenager and one was I started out of grief. Basically, Jennifer had to take on a mother style role, and created a lot of resentment between me and her during a time when we already had a lot of resentment. She was a teenager.
Nice. Let's come around. We're going to do those XP questions. So we're going to check the ones that you marked and give you XP. So Sabine, we solved a mystery, so you get to mark an XP for that. It just now occurs to me that we don't have others. The XP track is right behind it. Good. Did you secretly undermine the authority of a local official?
I tried very hard.
I think you did. So there's a point. And did you share your wisdom with a young person?
In the vignette, maybe, but otherwise it will.
Yeah, you did the scene. I'll give you a point for that.
Cool.
Scott, I'll need you to check your boxes. We'll come back to you in a second. Will, you solved a mystery, so mark an XP.
Mm-hmm.
Did you share a memory of a late family member?
Yeah, I mentioned Arthur helping a Chicago detective in one of his old novels.
Awesome. So mark an XP for that. And did you behave like a woman half your age?
That's what I was going for with the drinking barista coffee and espressos, like when everyone else is drinking tea.
That was perfect. So give you an XP for that. Barbara, you solved a mystery, so mark an XP. Did you share a memory of a late family member?
I don't believe I did.
Yeah, I don't think we got that. Yeah.
But I feel like at the very least, running and grabbing the pistol shows someone that I still got it.
Absolutely. That and pulling the doctor out of the way, like not caring about the gun. I think that was solid, both of those. Ruby, you solved a mystery. Did you share a memory of your late family member?
I did. I shared a memory of my husband playing with the children.
And did you dote on someone?
Yeah, I doted on Sarah when she was distraught.
Definitely.
Well, do we
yeah.
change those XP questions every session?
Absolutely. You'll always keep the solve a mystery one, but then you'll choose two others, and you can flip them around however you want from session to session. I mean, you can do the same ones again or different ones, however you want to do it. So that's the first session of this. Do you mind if we take a quick stars and wishes just to kind of assess and especially wishes to get a sense of what you would like to see more of next time, what we want to play with, those kinds of things, and stars being things you dug, enjoyed. Sabine, can I start with you?
Sure. I mean, stars to all of you for your fabulous mavens. They are all a lot of fun, and I can't wait to see more of them. As much as I enjoy being paired with Ruby, I would like to be paired with somebody else for next time, just so we can explore the dynamics between the women, and stars to the mystery, but that overboard. That horrible person, and that is a star to you all for portraying the NPCs so very, very vibrantly.
Anything else?
I think I'm good now.
Okay.
I mean, I love all the characters, but calling out each individual, I loved it all.
Oh,
I couldn't decide.
Scott.
I'll do wishes first.
Sure.
To me, one of the classic conventions of this genre, both print and in the better TV shows, is all the colorful characters that are in the exotic to modern America or England, place, who provide different types of information. And so just more of the people in town would be really great. And stars, I think I want to actually I want to give stars, and I don't normally do this, I usually keep it to one. I want to give stars to everybody for their backstories. I felt like mine was okay, but I loved how the integration with the hobbies was really cool. And after people did that, I was like, I wish I did that too. But so that was really cool. And I love that we're like this book club that meets in this hipster cafe, which I think that was Bobby's idea. I can't remember. So I starred to that idea because it's just perfect for a bunch of old, you know, what the hipsters probably think of as biddies, you know, hanging out in their cafe.
Awesome. Will?
Yeah, so I would like, you know, stars again for all the characters. I love Brindlewood. I think we've got that sort of daytime type TV kind of like mystery stuff. And I think that everyone did a really good job of like supporting each character kind of thing, you know, like organically, using the fiction and everything. And I thought that was really impressive. If we're doing wishes as well at the same time, I think my wish would just be a longer term one about like, I obviously want my husband's death to be somehow involved in this, the void conspiracy dark stuff that we will unpick as we go along kind of thing.
I think that is absolutely fair and certainly on the table, so to speak. One of the things I'm definitely going to do between now and next time is I'll get pictures for like Etienne and Dr. Nicole and the sheriff. So we'll get our little cast of characters on the table. We'll get the barista's picture, you know, all of that kind of thing on there. Dan.
Wishes is kind of hard because I really enjoyed everything about this. And
Oh, good.
These 3 sessions were just like this. I would be super happy. I do like the idea that Scott had of doing the more colorful characters in town. Thinking of Gilmore Girls, that TV show from 10 years ago or whatever. A lot of colorful characters in that New England town. Stars, I'll call Will out specifically. You really leaned into the dark conspiracy thing as much as possible, and I was curious to see how that would play out. So I was just happy to see that.
Awesome. Well, thank you. This is a neat game. My first time running it, so I appreciate you all going along with me on this, and we'll definitely try to do more day stuff. We ended up being kind of compact here on this, but we'll try and do some time lapse so we can get some more of the cozy moves, and we'll definitely get the cast of characters broadened for next time. So thank you all very much. I'm going to stop the recording. Stopping